Hello everyone and welcome to Petworking. I'm Peter Kenseth, Vice President and Partner at Maya Strategy Group, and I'm here at the CASCO booth at WVC 2025. I'm here with Kevin DeWalt of CASCO. Kevin and I met at Pet Connect back in December.
Yeah.
And had a chance to see the WELLKennels in action at the Modern Animal Tour with Christy Long, and we did a little segment on Petworking of that tour, but saw the booth here, and I think these are going to be a game changer in how veterinary medicine is practiced and how it can help animals, not just in a veterinary setting, but in shelters, potential applications for travel, and wanted to take a chance here to reconnect with Kevin and let you walk us through the features of the WELLKennels.
Yeah, appreciate it, Peter. Obviously, good to see you again. It was nice doing the Modern Animal Tour, as you mentioned, in Hollywood. But yeah, if you haven't seen a WELLKennel, this is what it looks like. It's obviously a whole lot more aesthetically pleasing than the standard stainless steel cage that's been around forever. And of course, that was by design. Peter mentioned fear-free, reducing stress and anxiety. That was a big driver when we were developing these. We've been around for about 7 years in market, and they've really started to catch on like wildfire. But they're just so much different than the standard stainless kennel. We have all sorts of features. You know, I mentioned the look, but the material we actually make WELLKennels out of has all sorts of sound attenuation benefits to it. So darking dogs in a veterinary hospital, stress other animals out that are in the hospital, but it also stresses out the vet techs and the veterinarians. So by reducing noise, we make life easier for the pet to recover when they're in the hospital, but also the veterinarians who have to take care of these pets day in and day out, it's easier on their ears, it's just much nicer.
Well, it's almost kind of a compounding effect, right? If you put a dog or a cat in an area where they don't hear that noise, they don't feel compelled to react. One dog starts barking, another starts, wonders what's going on, what's the alert.
They start
barking, they're expressing fear, expressing stress, and and like you said, it doesn't let them, fully recuperate, recover. You think about when we're sick, we sleep, we rest.
Yeah.
And God forbid if your pet has to be in an animal hospital for any length of time, you want them to be as comfortable as possible so they can relax and heal and recover.
Exactly. And before we started, we were actually talking about veterinarians and handling of patients. And if they're less stressed when they're actually in a kennel, when a practitioner comes and approaches the pet, it's just so much easier to deal with a relaxed pet as it is one that's stressed out and aggressive at that point. Yeah. So the benefits are widespread.
100%. And not only in dealing with them, but observing symptoms. If a pet's relaxed, it's going to be much more evident to see what they're going through than if they're stressed and potentially masking pain or not letting their true self show.
Yeah.
And we were also talking before we got on camera, Kevin, I think there's huge applications for that in the shelter world. You were mentioning you guys have done some installations at shelters, but if we think about adopting dogs and cats, if they're in a stressful environment, you're not seeing that true pet. Exactly. Yeah. We just did an episode with Rescue Spot and Nicole Patrick, and they're implementing a foster-based approach where they're not only pairing up dogs with potential adopters all over the country, they're giving people an opportunity to sign up to foster all over the country. And it gets back to a similar thing. If you put a pet in a more relaxed environment, you're going to see what that true pet is, what you're dealing with.
Yeah, and you're going to see the results from an adoption perspective. More pets being adopted is obviously what we all want, and we want healthy pets at home too. So.
Yeah. We see the light, we see the noise reduction, there's temperature control. They're very secure.
Very secure. So twist knob, but also nice and quiet when you go to close it. You mentioned light. Light was a big thing that we wanted. So we have 3 different settings. We call it the DRC acronym. It's daylight, recovery, and cleaning. So daylight obviously helps with circadian rhythms, so important to pets' well-being when they're in a veterinary hospital or stay or a shelter. All the lights are dimmable, so you can really select which brightness you want it. So we got the white light, which I mentioned, circadian rhythm. The red light, so recovery. post-surgery, you want a pet to recover. Dogs and cats don't see the color red like we do. So from a practitioner perspective, they can do a quick scan of the hospital. They can immediately see which pet is in recovery because they know they want to pay special attention to that pet. But because the red light's on, the pet doesn't see the color red. So they're actually able to relax without having to hang a blanket over it. And then when the pet's recovered, you want the cleaning light. So these are already easier to clean than a stainless steel kennel. You don't have all the bars. So biosecurity is a major focus. You want it to be ready for the next patient that needs to come in. So the blue light actually acts as a cleaning light. It doesn't actually clean the kennel, but it projects where it needs to be cleaned. So any organic matter that's in there is now visible to the practitioner that needs to tend to that cage.
Does the light have like the cleaning light, is that just a signal, or are there like UV
Just
properties?
a signal. Just a signal.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's very safe. Anytime you add UV to something, it becomes unsafe for a pet. We don't want that to actually accidentally get turned on.
Makes sense. And then you have a heat mat, so you...
Yeah, each of the kennels has an integrated heating element in the bottom of it. It's only on the back half of the kennel, and I know we're on video, so you can't really feel it, but if you put your hand at the back, it's warm, and then your hand at the front, it's actually cool.
It's different. That's cool.
So they can thermoregulate as and when they need it. We have power outlets at the front, so it's easy to plug in things like infusion pumps, all the accessories you need. So it's really about point of care at the kennel. Things like oxygen doors. Any well kennel can become an oxygenated kennel. It's just an attachment that fits on the front, but it's bring the oxygen to the patient theory as opposed to the patient oxygen.
Yeah.
We don't want to
let them rest.
Let them rest. Bring
Don't
it
make
to
them move. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's awesome. And then the other half of the the shelter thing, I don't know, but I would think there'd be huge opportunities in like shelter transport. If you could install these in like a truck or something like that. You see dogs come off a truck. I live in Vermont, and we get lots of dogs sent up from the south, South Carolina, Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, lots of those areas where there are more dogs, less spaying, neutering. Dogs get sent up, but you see them come off these trucks, and they're terrified. Likely because they're on a truck. They don't know where they're going. It's dark. Dogs are barking, and they're not in great. They're going to a better place, but they're not in great shape when they get off those trucks. And I think there's huge potential for trauma mitigation there if you could get these not only in the shelters but in those transport vehicles as well.
Yeah, huge opportunity obviously, and it's all for the betterment of the pet. What we have done, and I should have mentioned it when we were talking earlier, we've actually installed well kennels in mobile veterinary clinics or mobile veterinary vans, even a big trailer at one point that gets towed behind a truck. So we can install well kennels wherever. It doesn't have to be a brick and mortar facility. It can be something on four wheels, which is awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Basically, you just need kind of a square area to screw it down into, right?
Yep. And this is a stack around the corner. We have one. It's an under counter is what we call it. So it's just a singular unit. There's always flexibility in well kennels. We didn't touch on the dividers actually being removable. So if both doors are open as a safety feature, you can actually slide out the divider, so it gives you some flexibility.
So if you needed to put like a large dog in here as opposed to a cat, you can just slide that out and just use both sides.
Yep, all sorts of storage options and features. So, we have bottom storage cabinets. You can obviously see the upper ones up here. But just interesting things, because veterinarians, you have a lot of equipment that you need to put somewhere.
Yeah.
And we need to make veterinary hospitals look nice and clean. That's what brings pet parents back. So
you can do bespoke. You could go in and kind of retrofit an existing practice to work with the space they have available and make it look something like this.
Exactly. And we have our own in-house design team that does that day in and day out. So we get a floor plan, a couple pictures, some measurements, whatever it is. It could be a napkin drawing for all we care. And then we build out CAD drawings that go, this is what it could look like, send some renderings. It's full service.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What are you looking at in terms of like total installations right now? Where?
In total across the US?
Yeah.
Oh, upwards of probably 1,000 at this point. Yeah, it's been a really good 7 years. We'll put it that way.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's really cool. Well, the hope is always that you don't have to bring your pet to the vet and have them stay there, but I would, I keep saying I would love to see something like this at my vet's office. I think it'd make a huge difference. So.
We'll make it happen.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
Come to
Peter.
Vermont.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks.